9 South Korean soldiers dead in a single strike. One missile. One devastating hit on a fortified military position just south of the demilitarized zone. And the weapon that killed them? A North Korean intercontinental ballistic missile variant that South Korea's defense systems never even had a chance to intercept. Welcome to Legal Lens USA. I am your host, David Reynolds. What you are about to hear will fundamentally change how you understand the Korean Peninsula's military balance and what it means for American forces stationed right in the crosshairs. Before we go any further, if you are new here, hit that like button and subscribe right now because we cover stories like this before anyone else does, and we break them down in a way that actually makes sense. This is not just another border skirmish. This is not another artillery exchange that gets a 30-second mention on the evening news and then disappears. This is North Korea demonstrating a weapons capability that defense analysts across the globe are now scrambling to understand. 9 soldiers gone. A command post that was supposed to be hardened against exactly this type of threat, reduced to rubble. And the South Korean military, backed by billions in American defense technology, could not stop it from happening. The strike occurred at a forward observation post approximately 8 kilometers south of the demilitarized zone in Gangwon Province. This was not some isolated checkpoint manned by a skeleton crew. This was a reinforced position housing sophisticated surveillance equipment, communication infrastructure, and command elements responsible for monitoring a critical section of the border. The facility was built into the hillside with concrete reinforcement designed to withstand conventional artillery bombardment. It featured multiple layers of protective berms, hardened bunkers, and was equipped with early warning radar systems specifically configured to detect incoming projectiles from the north. The base served as a critical node in South Korea's defensive network, responsible for coordinating responses to potential North Korean incursions and maintaining real-time intelligence on military movements across the border. Dozens of personnel rotated through the facility on any given day, with permanent staff including signals intelligence specialists, forward observers, and tactical command officers. The location was chosen specifically because the terrain provided natural defensive advantages while offering clear sight lines into North Korean territory. Everything about this position was designed around survivability. Everything about it was supposed to ensure that the soldiers stationed there could operate with a reasonable expectation of protection even in a high-threat environment. And then, on what began as a routine morning with soldiers conducting standard rotation procedures and equipment checks, the air raid sirens began to wail. Not the periodic test sirens that troops had grown accustomed to hearing during drills. These were urgent, continuous, and accompanied by immediate orders to take cover. Radar operators across multiple South Korean installations had detected a launch signature from North Korea's Pyongyang region. The trajectory data was being processed in real time, computing potential impact zones and automatically triggering defense protocols that had been rehearsed countless times. But the missile was not following a conventional path. Within moments of those alarms sounding, confusion spread through command centers because the trajectory was steeper than expected, the speed was exceeding standard ballistic profiles, and the projected impact point was shifting in ways that suggested something beyond a traditional ballistic missile. Then, before interceptor batteries could achieve firing solutions, before evacuation procedures could be completed, the weapon struck. Video footage captured by nearby civilian security cameras shows a massive explosion, a fireball that consumed the entire hillside position, secondary detonations as ammunition stores ignited, and a debris cloud that rose hundreds of meters into the air. When the smoke cleared and rescue teams finally reached the site, they found complete devastation. The reinforced bunkers had collapsed. Communication equipment was obliterated, and 9 South Korean soldiers were confirmed dead, with multiple others critically injured. The weapon responsible for this destruction was identified as a modified version of North Korea's Hwasong-18, an intercontinental ballistic missile that Pyongyang has been developing and testing for several years. But this was not a standard ICBM launch intended to demonstrate range by lobbing a projectile into the Pacific Ocean. This was a depressed trajectory strike using technology that defense experts had been warning about, but that most analysts believed North Korea had not yet operationalized. The Hwasong-18 itself represents North Korea's most advanced solid-fuel intercontinental ballistic missile system. Unlike liquid fuel missiles that require hours of fueling procedures before launch, making them vulnerable to preemptive strikes while they sit on launch pads, solid fuel systems can be fired with minimal preparation time. The missile uses a 3-stage rocket motor configuration that provides the thrust necessary to carry payloads across intercontinental distances, theoretically capable of reaching targets across the Pacific, including the continental United States. North Korean state media has claimed the Hwasong-18 can deliver nuclear warheads to any location on Earth, a boast that most Western analysts view as exaggerated but not entirely without technical foundation. What makes this particular strike so alarming is not just that North Korea used an ICBM variant, but how they used it. Traditional intercontinental ballistic missiles follow what is called a minimum energy trajectory. They launch, ascend through the atmosphere into space, travel along a ballistic arc at the edge of the exosphere where there is virtually no air resistance, and then re-enter the atmosphere to strike their targets. This trajectory is energy efficient, allowing maximum range with given fuel loads, but it is also highly predictable. Radar systems can track the launch, calculate the arc, predict the impact point, and theoretically position interceptors to destroy the incoming warhead during its descent phase. The Hwasong-18 variant used in this strike did not follow that pattern. Instead, it employed what military analysts call a depressed trajectory, sometimes referred to as a lofted or quasi-ballistic profile. Rather than ascending to maximum altitude to achieve range, the missile maintained a much lower, flatter trajectory that kept it within the denser portions of the atmosphere for longer periods of its flight. Think of it this way. A normal ICBM is like a golf ball being hit for maximum distance. It goes way up into the air, travels a long arc, and comes back down far away. A depressed trajectory ICBM is like a line drive in baseball. It stays much lower, travels faster horizontally, and reaches its target in a fraction of the time with far less warning. This is not a new concept. The Soviet Union explored depressed trajectory options during the Cold War as a way to reduce warning time against American missile defenses. But the technique requires significant engineering sophistication because keeping a missile stable at lower altitudes where atmospheric forces are stronger demands advanced guidance systems and structural integrity that can withstand increased aerodynamic stress. The fact that North Korea has apparently operationalized this capability represents a major technological achievement and a strategic game-changer for the Korean peninsula. According to South Korean military officials and statements released through regional media, the Hwasong-18 variant traveled approximately 400 kilometers from its launch point near Pyongyang to the target in Gangwon province. Under a standard ballistic trajectory, that flight would have taken approximately 10 to 12 minutes and reached an apogee of several hundred kilometers, providing South Korean and American early warning systems with sufficient time to track, analyze, and potentially intercept. The depressed trajectory profile reduced flight time to approximately 4 minutes from launch to impact and kept the missile below 200 kilometers altitude for most of its flight path. 4 minutes. Read that again. 4 minutes from the moment North Korean commanders gave the launch order to the moment 9 South Korean soldiers were killed. That is barely enough time to sound alarms, let alone coordinate defensive responses, achieve firing solutions for interceptor batteries, and execute engagement protocols. And even if there had been enough time, the technical challenges of intercepting a depressed trajectory weapon are substantially greater than engaging conventional ballistic missiles. South Korea's missile defense architecture relies primarily on the PAC-3 Patriot system for lower-tier defense and has been working toward integrating higher-tier systems, including potential THAAD deployments. These systems are designed to intercept missiles during their descent phase when they are following predictable ballistic trajectories and can be engaged at relatively high altitudes where interceptor performance is optimized. A depressed trajectory weapon that remains at lower altitudes throughout most of its flight presents a completely different engagement problem. The interceptor has less time to reach the target, must operate in denser atmosphere that affects its maneuverability, and faces a missile that is traveling at extreme velocity on a flatter angle of attack. North Korean state media was quick to announce what they described as a successful precision strike against a South Korean military facility, claiming the operation demonstrated the Korean People's Army's ability to hold any target on the peninsula at risk, regardless of defensive measures. According to statements from Pyongyang's official channels, the strike was conducted in response to what North Korea characterized as provocative military exercises conducted by South Korea and the United States in recent weeks. The announcements emphasized the solid fuel technology allowing rapid response capabilities and highlighted the depressed trajectory as evidence of technical sophistication that renders existing missile defenses inadequate. But here is where this story takes a turn that should concern everyone paying attention to global military developments. It was not a North Korean propaganda official who confirmed that this type of weapon poses an essentially unsolvable challenge for current defense systems. It was a former senior official from South Korea's Defense Acquisition Program Administration, speaking at a closed-door briefing that was subsequently leaked to regional media outlets. According to reports of that briefing, the official stated that intercepting depressed trajectory ballistic missiles with current Patriot configurations represents an engineering challenge that South Korea's defense industry has not solved, and that even with American technical assistance, developing effective countermeasures could require 5 to 7 years of research and development plus tens of billions of dollars in new system deployments. Let that sink in for a moment. This is not North Korean propaganda claiming their weapons are invincible. This is South Korea's own defense establishment, the people responsible for protecting the country against exactly this threat, telling their government that they do not have an answer. The official reportedly used an analogy comparing the challenge to trying to hit a major league fastball pitcher's best pitch while the batter is standing with their eyes closed until 1 second before the ball reaches the plate. Technically, you know the ball is coming. You have sophisticated equipment that can track its path, but the time compression and trajectory characteristics make successful engagement a matter of luck rather than reliable capability. That is South Korea's defense acquisition leadership, telling their political masters that the missile defense systems they have spent billions acquiring, the integrated architecture they have built in coordination with the United States military, and the interceptor batteries positioned across the country cannot reliably stop what North Korea just demonstrated. You can have the most advanced radar systems ever deployed, the fastest interceptor missiles in the arsenal, the most sophisticated battle management networks connecting everything together. But when the weapon is flying that low, that fast, on that profile, current technology cannot guarantee interception. And in this case, not guaranteeing interception meant 9 soldiers dead and a fortified position destroyed. So where does this leave the strategic situation on the Korean Peninsula? It leaves us at a moment where fundamental assumptions about deterrence and defense have been challenged in a way that policymakers and military planners are still processing. The entire premise of South Korea's forward defense strategy has been that hardened positions near the DMZ can survive long enough under attack to slow any North Korean advance while reinforcements arrive and counterattack operations are organized. The idea that North Korea can precisely strike these positions with minimal warning using weapons that bypass defensive systems undermines that premise completely. What does this mean strategically? This is where the story goes from shocking to genuinely alarming for anyone concerned about regional stability and the security of American forces deployed in South Korea. The Republic of Korea maintains approximately 500,000 active duty military personnel, with another 3 million trained reserves. The entire force structure is built around the concept of defense in depth, trading space for time while inflicting maximum casualties on any North Korean invasion force. Forward positions detect and delay. Mobile forces maneuver and strike. Hardened facilities ensure command continuity. That entire operational concept assumes that critical facilities can survive the initial phases of conflict. The Hwasong-18 depressed trajectory capability directly attacks those assumptions. If North Korea can strike hardened command posts, communication nodes, and forward bases with precision and minimal warning, then the carefully constructed defense architecture that has deterred conflict for decades becomes far more fragile. Every command bunker, every radar installation, every logistics hub that supports forward deployed forces now exists under a threat that South Korea cannot reliably defend against. And developing the capability to defend against this threat is not something that can be solved quickly. Implementing effective defenses against depressed trajectory ballistic missiles would require fundamentally different interceptor systems than what currently exists in South Korea's inventory. Traditional missile defense relies on high-altitude intercepts, where the physics favor the defender. Engaging targets at lower altitudes and denser atmosphere requires faster reacting systems with different sensor configurations and interceptor designs optimized for these conditions. South Korean defense officials have indicated that even with maximum priority and unlimited funding, fielding such systems would require years of development, testing, and deployment. Years. That means for the foreseeable future, potentially the next half-decade or longer, North Korea possesses a demonstrated capability to strike high-value targets across South Korea with weapons that existing defenses cannot reliably counter. That changes the military balance in ways that extend far beyond the Korean Peninsula. The United States maintains approximately 28,500 military personnel in South Korea, concentrated primarily at major installations including Camp Humphreys, Osan Air Base, and Kunsan Air Base. These facilities house critical air power assets, logistics infrastructure, and command elements that would be essential in any conflict scenario. Every one of those installations now operates with the knowledge that North Korea has demonstrated the ability to strike defended targets with minimal warning using weapons that American and South Korean missile defense systems struggle to intercept. That changes force protection calculations. That changes operational planning. That changes the fundamental risk assessment that goes into decisions about force posture and readiness. For American commanders responsible for those 28,000 troops, this is not an abstract strategic concern. This is a direct threat to the forces under their command. And the implications extend beyond immediate military vulnerabilities to the broader geopolitical landscape. For years, American defense policy in the Asia-Pacific region has rested on assurances to allies that advanced missile defense systems, enabled by American technology and integrated with American intelligence capabilities, provide effective protection against North Korean threats. South Korea, Japan, and other regional partners have invested heavily in these systems based on those assurances. The demonstration that North Korea can bypass those defenses using depressed trajectory ballistic missiles undermines the credibility of those assurances. If South Korea cannot rely on missile defense to protect critical installations, what does that mean for deterrence? If American forces stationed in South Korea are vulnerable to precision strikes that defenses cannot prevent, how does that affect American willingness to maintain those forward deployments? If allies across the region are questioning whether American defensive capabilities can actually protect them against evolving North Korean threats, what does that mean for the alliance structures that have underpinned regional security for 7 decades? These are not hypothetical questions. These are the conversations happening right now in defense ministries across East Asia. These are the assessments being written by intelligence analysts and strategic planners trying to understand what this capability demonstration means for their country's security. And the answers are not reassuring. Now, it is important to acknowledge that not everyone accepts North Korea's claims about this strike at face value. According to South Korean government officials speaking to domestic media, while the strike did occur and casualties were confirmed, there are questions about whether the weapon employed was actually a modified Hwasong-18 ICBM or potentially a shorter-range system that achieved similar effects. Some analysts have suggested that the strike could have been conducted using North Korea's KN-23 or KN-24 short-range ballistic missiles, which are known to use depressed trajectories and have been tested extensively over the past several years. United States Forces Korea issued a statement confirming that a North Korean missile strike had occurred against a South Korean military facility and that American personnel were not involved in the incident. The statement emphasized that U.S. and South Korean forces maintain robust defensive capabilities and that the alliance remains fully prepared to respond to any provocation. According to Pentagon officials speaking on background, American intelligence agencies are conducting detailed analysis of the strike, including examination of debris recovered from the site, review of radar tracking data, and assessment of North Korean statements to determine exactly what weapon was employed and how it performed. The conflicting narratives, North Korea claiming a successful demonstration of advanced ICBM variant technology, and South Korean and American officials suggesting the weapon may have been something less sophisticated, created an atmosphere of uncertainty in the immediate aftermath of the strike. For many observers, the mere fact that North Korea could conduct a precision strike against a defended South Korean military facility with apparent impunity represented a significant escalation regardless of the specific weapon system involved. Some defense analysts have noted that even if the weapon was not technically a Hwasong-18 variant, North Korea has clearly demonstrated depressed trajectory ballistic missile capabilities that pose serious challenges for existing defense architectures. The debate over which specific missile type was used, while relevant for technical assessment, does not fundamentally change the strategic implications of North Korea possessing weapons that can strike targets across the South with minimal warning and high probability of penetrating defenses. In the absence of independent verification of the weapon type beyond what North Korean state media has claimed and what debris analysis may eventually confirm, the truth of the specific missile designation remains contested. But the significance of the strike itself, the casualties it inflicted, and the vulnerabilities it exposed are undeniable facts that defense establishments across the region are now forced to confront. So where does this leave us? It leaves us at a moment in modern military history where a country that much of the Western world has dismissed as impoverished and technologically backward has demonstrated a weapons capability that fundamentally challenges the defensive assumptions of one of the world's most advanced military powers and its superpower ally. 9 South Korean soldiers are dead. A fortified military position that was designed to survive was destroyed. Existing missile defense systems that cost billions of dollars to develop and deploy could not prevent it from happening. This is a story that is still developing, and Legal Lens USA will keep you updated as new information emerges and as the full implications of this strike become clearer. If this video helped you understand what is really happening on the Korean Peninsula and why it matters for regional security and American military commitments, please share it with someone who needs to see it and drop a comment below. Do you think South Korea and the United States have a credible answer to North Korea's depressed trajectory ballistic missile capability right now? Let us know what you think, because this conversation matters and your perspective matters. This is what North Korea has demonstrated with a single strike on a fortified South Korean position. Across the region, every military analyst, every defense ministry, every alliance headquarters is now absorbing what that means. The answers are not clear yet. The response is not defined yet. But the question has been asked loudly, decisively, in the rubble of a command post in Gangwon province and in the deaths of 9 soldiers who were supposed to be protected by the most advanced defenses available. The Korean Peninsula's military balance has shifted, and the world is only beginning to understand what comes next.